Right, in this video, we're going to go through some of the released items. That means these were questions that were on an actual Algebra EOC test. If you like to pause the video and take a minute to read the question to yourself, you should do that. And you could try to solve it if you want. Right, so for those of you that have read it, you see that we're trying to solve the question for variable e. That means we're trying to get e by itself. In order to get e by itself, we have to see what's happening to e right now. E is being multiplied by 9, and e is being divided by n. So in order to isolate e, we have to do those opposites. So opposite of divide by n is multiply by n. Whatever we do on one side of the equation, we have to do on the other side. So now we have NA is equal to 9e, because these n's cancel out. 9 times e, the opposite of that, is divide by 9. So I divide by 9, and now e is by itself, and this is the expression that I have. When I look through my answer choices, I don't see any choice that is exactly the same as this one, but we have to understand that NA means the same thing as AN, because it's just multiplying two numbers together. So choice B is the correct answer. All right, number two. Number two, we have a function shown. We have the equation of the function here in standard form, and we're trying to figure out which graph represents the function. So we have a few different things going on. We could try to do this by using our x and y intercepts since we have standard form. Standard form is this easy way to use those x and y intercepts. So what I do is I can plug in 0 for x. That's going to give me 4y equals 14, and then I divide and get y is 3.5. So that tells me that the point 0, 3.5 is on my graph because I made x 0, I got that y was 3.5. So if I go through my choices, I see 0, 3.5 on this graph and on this graph. It's not on the other two graphs. It's not on B or D, so I know those are not correct. Now I can check and I can plug in a 0 for y. If I plug in a 0 for y, I get 7x equals 14 and x is equal to 2. So x is 2, y was 0. So the point 2, 0 should be on my graph. A is the only graph that contains both of those coordinates, so A is the correct answer. All right, moving on, we're going to look at number 3. Number 3, we have another equation. This time it's an inequality, and we have some shading going on. The best way to set up a problem like this is to get it into slope-intercept form, and I know we don't have an equal sign, but think about the equal sign and the inequality being in the same place. So right now our x and our y are both on the left, and we want to get the y by itself. So I'm going to move the x over. To move the x over, I'm going to have to subtract that negative. I'm going to have to subtract 4x. So these cancel out, and now I've got 5y is greater than or equal to. I can't put these two terms together because one has a variable and one does not. So now I just have to write them next to each other. In my formula, it says write the x term first. So I'm going to write negative 4x first and then add 10. Now I can divide by 5 to finish getting y by itself. When I divide by 5, I divide everything by 5, and I've got y is greater than or equal to negative 4/5 x plus 2. So what do I know from my graph? All of my graphs here have a y-intercept of 2, so that piece doesn't really help me. My slope, this part right here, is a negative 4/5. If I look at this graph, my slope is positive, so I know this one is wrong. This graph has a negative slope. This graph has a positive slope, so this one's wrong. So now I have to decide between these two, what's the difference between the graphs? And it's the shading. This graph is shaded above the line or above the y-intercept. This graph is shaded below the y-intercept. I need to remember that this greater than symbol tells me I'm going to shade above my y-intercept. So the correct answer for this one is going to be C. Okay, some things to remember about this. is if it's greater than or equal to, we shade above, and if it's less than or equal to, we shade below. Okay, you can also try test points if you wanted to, like you could plug in the 0.00. If that point makes the inequality true, then we would want to be shaded there. Okay, if it makes it false, it shouldn't be shaded there. All right, moving on to number 4. We have a compound inequality. When we have a compound inequality, it means we have to solve both of these. The copies are a little bit harder to read, but we're going to go ahead and solve this first one. To solve this, I would need to add 1 to both sides, and then I would need to divide by 2. I'm going to get an answer of x is less than or equal to 2. Now, some important things here. This bar being underneath here tells me that my circle at 2 is going to be a shaded in circle. So when I look at my graphs, this has a shaded in circle, this has an open circle. So I know C is wrong. B has an open circle, so I know B is wrong. And then D has a shaded circle, so I know that one's correct. Okay, it says less than. Less than means I'm going to shade the numbers that are less than 2. So I should be shaded on the left. A is shaded in the correct spot. D is not shaded in the correct spot. I'm going to go ahead and just double check because right now I think my answer is A, but I'm going to go ahead and solve for my other part of the inequality just to make sure. So I'm going to subtract 4 and I get 1/2 x is greater than 3. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 1/2. So x is greater than 6. I know that since there's not a bar underneath here, I should have an open circle. That one's correct. That's correct. But I need to shade greater than 6. Greater than 6, these numbers are greater than 6, and these are shaded in. So those are correct. Over here, they're shaded less than 6. So I was right, even with just the first inequality, that my answer is going to be A. All right, number 5. We have an inequality and we want to know the solution. So this one, we have a solution written in set notation instead of on a number line. Our goal is to get all of the x's together, so I'm going to add x to each side. I want to remember that there's really a 1 in front of here. So these x's cancel, and now this becomes negative 2x. And that means I need to get my constants to the right. So I'm going to subtract 7 on both sides. So now I have negative 2x is greater than or equal to negative 12. Here I'm going to divide by negative 2. And when I divide by negative 2, I get x on the left and I get 6 on the right. Now there's an important rule we have to remember that if you ever divide by a negative while solving an inequality, we switch the sign. So this sign now changes to a less than or equal to. So I want to pick choice A because that is the only choice that has my less than or equal to, and it has the 6 on this side. Okay, number 6 says, what is the sum? So when I do what is the sum, I'm going to need to add like terms. So I have 2x to the third plus 3x to the third plus 4x plus 5. And then I'm going to combine my like terms. I get 5x to the third and 9x. So we have choice C. You have to remember combining like terms means we have the same exponent with those variables.